Recording in progress.
Whoa. Okay. Okay. So in fact, the notion, so I will start with introduction. The notion of a fusion category is a categorification. I will explain that later in the course. So it's a categorification of the notion of fusion ring. Let's call it F. Can you? Yes, you can cut. So the notion of fusion ring, which is elementary. The notion of fusion category is not elementary. It's abstract. It's come from category, but the notion of fusion ring is very easy. It's elementary. It's a bit quite combinatorial, if you want. So a fusion ring is given by, so it is given by a finite set B, like that, B1 up to BR, together with fusion rules. So fusion rules like that. So we have B fusion rule on the element of the basis B1, BI, BJ is the sum for k equal 1 to R of n ij k bk with n ij k non-negative integer. And it should satisfy four axiom. So I will write this four axiom for a fusion for the fusion rule. But before writing the four axiom, to fix the intuition, you should think of this fusion as a generalization of the multiplication on a finite group, or you can know. So you should think. So plus for axiom, we will write after. You should think this notion as a generalization of the multiplication on a finite group, or the generalization of the tensor product on the representation of a finite group. So it's a generation of both notions. As you see, you have a finite group. So you can think the element of the basis as the element of the group, and then the product is just the product of the group. But you can also think that as all the irreducible complex representation, then the fusion here denotes the tensor product of the irreducible representation, and here it's a multiplicity space of the decomposition into irreducible. But anyway, just to fix the intuition for people who know a bit of representation theory, so it does not matter because we will do everything from the beginning. There is no need. You don't need to know anything. Okay, so what is the axiom? So as I said, the axiom will generalize the axiom of the group. So here are the axioms. So first, associativity. So which write like that: Bi, Bj, Bk equal Bi, Bj, Bk. If you like, you can reformulate this axiom in terms of this constant. So you can reformulate this axiom as an equation on this constant. But we will not do that now. So associativity, the neutral. So there is a specific element B1 plays the role of the neutral element such that B1 Bi equal Bi B1 equal Bi. Then you have a notion of inverse, generalization of the notion of inverse. In fact, you can also call that adjoint, or you can also call that dual. So for all I, there exists a unique something called I star. So this is the index of the element of the basis with Nik1 equal Nki1 equal delta I star k. So you see, it's exactly as for a neutral element. Here, you see the multiplication of Bi with Bk, and you see that one is in a component, B1 is a component, if and only if K is I star. And you see, it's if it is a component, it is a component with multiplicity 1. And finally, you have the Frobenius reciprocity, which is like that: Nijk equal Ni star Kj equal Nkj star I. So how to think about that? Here, for example, you start here. You replace I by I star, and you permute K and J. Or you start from here, you put J star, and you permute I and K. And this axiom corresponds to the notion of adjoint in a inner product space. This you can if you have an operator on inner product space, the adjoint of the operator is defined with inner product, and you can reformulate, if you like, this axiom as the star being the dual of an operator. Okay. Okay. So you can, so as I said, so a representation ring of finite group satisfy all this property, but in general, it's not it's not a representation ring of a finite group. So in general, you can understand that as a representation of something, a virtual group or quantum symmetries, representation ring of quantum symmetries. In fact, this makes sense because such symmetry, such a fusion ring appear in quantum theory, quantum algebra. So, okay. So what is interesting here is that you have something generalizing the notion of representation theory on a finite group, but where the dimension of the representation can be non-integer, can be finite, but not an integer in general. So so there exists a ring star homomorphism called dimension from F to the non-negative real. So there is a ring homomorphism like that, and it's not necessarily, so in particular, dim of BI can be non-integral. Let's see. So it's like a representation with a non-integral dimension. So it's a quantum world like that. So let's see an example, a golden example. Called the Yang-Lee fusion ring. So you have B1, you have 2, and so B1 is the neutral, and B2 square equal B1 plus B2. So this is one of the easiest non-trivial fusion ring. If you apply, so of course I did not prove that. I will prove that in the course later, but we are in the introduction part, so I prove nothing in the introduction part. But this is called Frobenius-Schur theorem. Frobenius-Schur theorem. Yeah. Anyway, so we will see that later. So so if you apply the dimension here. Apply dim, and because it's a ring homomorphism, then you have dim the B2 square equal 1 plus dim of B2. So of course dim, it's easy to see that dim of B1 is 1. Dim of B1 equal 1. This is easy to see. It's a ring homomorphism. So so you have the equation x squared equal 1 plus x. So this implies that x equal 1 plus square root of 5 over 2, because it should be positive. So this is a golden ratio. So that's why you can call that a golden example. So you have an example of something like a representation theory of some quantum symmetry, where the representation has dimension, the golden ratio. Golden ratio. And Okay. Okay. So this is interesting, in fact. Okay. So now. So we will see. We will see. We will see that any fusion category so from any fusion category, we can associate. We can associate a fusion ring called its Grothendieck ring. Grothendieck ring. But not every fusion ring is Grothendieck. Ring. If it is, it is called catégorie fiable. Catégorie fiable. As I said, the fusion ring, this is very easy. Fusion category, this is quite hard. But you can go from fusion ring to fusion category by a process of categorification. And we will see that, yeah. So example, let's see some example. So if you come back to the previous example, but you generate it a bit, so B1, B2. And now you said B2 square equal B1 plus N B2. Then it's a theorem. It is category fiable. Of course, we will define that later in details. If and if N equals 0 or 1. So for N equal 2, this is a fusion ring, but it does not come from a category. N equals 0 corresponds to the group Z2. N equal 1, this is a Yang-Lee fusion ring. So it's category fiable, and there is something called the Yang-Lee category. Okay. So one of the main problem of this theory is to know whether a given fusion ring is category fiable. And we will see that this mean, we will see in details later that this which mean that its pentagon equation admit a solution. Admit a solution. And the pentagon equation, so in general, but but in general, the pentagon equation is a too big polynomial system to be solved directly, to be solved directly. Okay, but we will see. But if a solution exists, we know that there are only finitely many ones up to equivalence. This is Ocneanu rigidity. And we will see that later if we have time. This is a very deep theorem, Ocneanu rigidity. Okay, so this is almost the end of the introduction. So we will follow the book called the Tensor Category. In fact, I have the book here. This book. So we will follow this book. So this book is available. So it is available for free, available online. At the following link. Tu envoies le lien. Ceci. See the WeChat group, we will send the link of the book. So you can, we will send the link of the book, then you can follow. The book is available for free. Okay. So we will start it from we'll start it from chapter 2 called monoidal category. Monoidal category. So the notion of monoidal category is the basic notion you should start with if you want to know fusion category. So fusion category is a monoidal category plus extra assumption. Monoidal category. Okay, but before that, we will very briefly recall what is category. A category, a functor, very briefly, a natural transformation etc. So this is not in the book, in fact. So I will recall it here. Not in the book. Because in fact, this book assumes that to be known. So we can, yeah. Okay. Okay. So let's start with the notion of category. So what is a category? Category. Category C. So category C is given. So given by a collection of objects denoted X in C, a collection of morphism, F in OM C, OM C X Y. So we can also denote that in the literature, you can also find C, X, Y, and F can be denoted like that. So it's just an arrow between two objects. So I guess in this course, we will use this notation, so it's a set, yeah, it's set. So, okay. So what should I say? In the course, all this will be considered as a set. It's called a locally small fusion category, where this is a set. So I don't want to go into details about a more general category, but in this course, this will be a set. The collection of objects is not necessarily a set. If the collection of objects and the collection of morphism are set, then it's called a small category. And if it is only the collection of morphism like that, it's a set, then it's called a locally small category. We will always assume C to be set called locally small category. Okay. So X and Y are in C. So you have two collection of objects, a collection of morphism, and you have three axioms. So first axiom, the composition axiom. Composition. So you have F in the set X, Y. G in the set Y, Z. Then G, the composition of G and F is then there is a notion of composition. G and F is in like that. So what is this composition? This is just you put two arrows. So you are X, Y, Z, F, G. And so you assume the existence of something called G like that. And it's like here. And this is also in the set X, Z. So, okay, then identity. So there exists a specific element in the set called ID in this set. Identity such that for all F in C X, Y, you have F composition IDX equal F IDY composition F equal F. So this is okay. And associativity. Associativity. So you have okay. So I will write it like that. X, Y, Z. T. You have F, G, and H. Then H composition G, F equal like that. Okay. So okay. So this is really very, very basic definition of what is a category. So of course you can think a category as a category of something where you can think about example, your favorite example, category of group, category of vector space, category of what you want. But here, if you consider category as an abstract, in the abstract framework, here, this is not a set, this is not a space, this is just an object. This is just an abstract object. And this is just an arrow. So you can think a category as a kind of big graph, infinite graph, with some arrow, a tree, or as you want, something combinatorial, but of course you have all this axiom. But you should forget, you can think this as a set or a space for the intuition, but in general, it's not that. In general, it cannot be a space or a vector space or something, or a set or anything. So you should think that abstractly. Okay. Yeah. C'est à quelle heure la pause? C'est à quelle heure la pause?
Dans 10 minutes.
So the pause will be after 10 minutes. Okay, so maybe I should write that. So warning, as I said. Is just an arrow as for a graph. And X is not a set in general, just an abstract. An abstract object. Okay. But as I said, the home space, the home set, this is a set. We assume that to be a set. That is a set. Locally small category. Okay. So, okay. So what is an isomorphism? Isomorphism of C. The isomorphism of C. So it's an element. So you have. So we call that F. F will be called an isomorphism if so F such F is an isomorphism if there exists a G like that, such that G composition with F is the identity of X, and F composition with G is the identity of Y. Okay. So the notion of isomorphism is exactly what you can expect. Okay. Okay, so now what is a functor? So as I said, we will need the notion of functor. So a functor is like a map from one category to another category, C prime. And this map, from one object you associate an object in the other category, and from one so if you have F from one morphism, you associate the morphism also. Such that it commute with the composition. So F is equal to like that. And deal with the identity correctly, as you can expect. So maybe I will write this here. There's no room for that. Such that F the ID X equal ID F X and like that. One. Okay. So this is okay. So for example, the identity functor. So I put this as an example because we will need this functor. So identity functor F equal IDC. So from C to C, and trivially, so you have IDC of X equal X and IDC of F equal F. So this is what you can expect for so identity functor. Okay. And we will also need to introduce something a bit more deep. We will need to introduce a notion of natural transformation. Natural transformation. So a natural transformation is something between, so you have, so you can call that phi, if you want. So you have two functors, F1, F2, from C to C prime. You have two functors, and a natural transformation is something from one functor to the other functor. such that, so for all, so yeah, if you want, you can think, but I will not go into the details, but you can think. The functor between this natural transformation are as a morphism of this other category. But we will not go into that. We just need to define it directly like that. So such that for all, so where is X? Yeah, for all X, Y in C, and for all, so you have morphism like that. You have the following commutative diagram. So F1X. So you have a morphism called like that. F2X, phi X, like that. F1Y, phi Y, F2Y, F2 of F, F1 of F. So there exists. So for all there exists. Where should I write that? There exists phi X, phi Y, such that this commutative diagram commute. So the commute mean, which means that F2 F composition with phi X equal phi Y composition with F1 of F. So if you go from there to there, this is the same thing that going from there to there. So a natural transformation, so is is given by all such morphism. So you to have a natural transformation, you need to have this morphism for all X, like that, such that this diagram commutes. And this is just the definition of a natural transformation. Okay. Okay, so this is a pause. So pause. 5-minute pause. Okay. Okay. So let's restart. So natural transformation. Okay. So we will define the specific natural transformation called a natural isomorphism. So natural isomorphism phi. So with a natural transformation such that for all X is an isomorphism of C prime. So, where is it? Yeah, an isomorphism, I did not note that, but an isomorphism can be noted like that, in fact. What's that? Je sais plus gros. And a natural isomorphism, here, you can see the notation, so you should not be afraid. You see this notation like that. Notation. Okay. Natural isomorphism. Yeah. So all this morphism should be isomorphism. Okay. Then, so the last notion we need to recall before starting with the book is a notion of category equivalence. Category equivalence. Category equivalence. Okay. So you have f, a functor from C to C prime. It will be a category equivalence if, so you have J from C prime to C, such that there is a natural isomorphism, so such that there exists phi prime from F composite with J ID phi prime phi J to ID C, natural isomorphism. So if you have that, such F is called an equivalence of category. So F is called an equivalence of category, and yeah, C and C prime are called equivalent. Are called equivalent. They are equivalent. Okay. So let okay. So we will okay. So if you have a commute, you have some commuting diagram. A commuting diagram, then its image by a functor is also commuting. exercise show that the converse is true if the functor is an equivalence of category. So later we will meet some commuting diagram, and we say, okay, so you apply the functor, the result is also commuting, but we will need the converse in some case where the functor is equivalence of category, and we will assume that the converse is also, the diagram is also commuting. So it's this exercise. Okay. And finally, what is an isomorphism of category? So an isomorphism of category, it's as for an equivalence of category, but with f from G equal ID of C prime, and G composite F is equal to the identity of C. So as I said here, in general, you only have a natural, so it's not an equality, it's just there is a natural isomorphism. So this is equivalence of category. But if we want an isomorphism of category, you need this to be an equality. So it's not an equality in general. Yeah. So, yeah. Remark. Isomorphism imply equivalent. Isomorph equivalent. But the converse is false. The converse is false. Okay. So we will I will explain a little bit why the converse is false. This is because every category okay. Okay. So why? Theorem. There is a theorem we will not prove here because it's a theorem, a pure category theorem. Assumed here, every category is equivalent to a skeletal one, the skeletal category. And the definition. So what is skeletal? A category is skeletal if every isomorphism class of object contain one element, one object. In other words, x by x equal. Yeah. So every category is equivalent to a skeletal category. So a category where if you have two objects which are isomorphism, then they must be the same. So this is related to the axiom of choice. And so a category skeletal. So every category C is equivalent to a skeletal category. You can denote it like that. If C is not skeletal, if C itself is not skeletal, then C and C prime are not, they are equivalent by the theorem, are not isomorphic category. They are equivalent, but not isomorphic. So this is the big subtlety in category theory. You need to deal with, you need to be careful. Something which can be equivalent, but not isomorphic. And this is the main example. If you have a category which is not skeletal, then it is equivalent to its skeleton. One skeleton, but not isomorphic. It is not skeletal. So it's good to have that in mind. Okay. And okay. So I will prove something now. A lemma that we will need. Lemma. And this lemma will be the last point of the reminder aspect of category theory. After this lemma, we will start with the book. So lemma, let's call it lemma 1 because so I just said that an equivalence, isomorphism imply equivalence, but equivalence do not imply isomorphism. But if you restrict to the Homs set, then you still get a bijection, and this is very useful. So an equivalence of category induce a bijection of Homs set, but of course not of object. I don't write it, but not I write it. Not of object. So what I mean? So I mean that if you consider a functor from C to C prime, which is an equivalence. Then the POM set should do like that. F Y F map 2. It's a bijection. So this is a bijection. I don't know how to call that. But it's a bijection. It's a bijection. Okay. So proof. The only thing we will prove in this section. So by so we will make f from f of f like that. So by definition of f, there exists J, you have like that. You have it's online. Oh, everybody follow online, in fact.
I don't know whether the professor will see if it was how does it work.
Yeah, but you should be online.
No course now.
Huh? There is a course now.
Is this the room for course?
Yeah. I am in the course now.
Yeah.
I am online in the course.
Oh,
No.
sorry.
It's okay. So so what I said, yeah. So definition, so you have like that. Yeah. And so you have this commuting diagram. So F Y F, which commute, which means, as I said, F like that equal F, but phi is a natural. It's also a natural isomorphism. So phi x is an isomorphism, is inversible, and so f equal phi y composite with g f of f with the inverse of x. So you can apply the inverse. So okay, so you started from f and you started from that and you recover that. You started from that and you can get that. So it's a bijection. Yeah. So we can call, if we call, okay. Ça, I need to register. Je dois enregistrer là. Je suis arrivé à 12. Wait a minute. J'avais fait les premiers. Okay. So I have to come back to there. Bon, j'efface. Okay. So if you call this bijection, we call this property 1. Let's call this property 1, like that. There is another property we will not prove. Two. There is another result, another property. We will not prove. Yeah. 2. For all x prime in C prime, there exists x in x such that f of x is isomorphism to x prime, where f is, of course, another property of f equivalence. And so we will not don't prove that. And so there's a result saying that f is an equivalence of category if and if we have 1 and 2. So 1 and 2. So an equivalence of category, where is the definition? Yeah. So here you have an equivalence of category. So this is the basic definition of an equivalence of category, but this is not always easy to check in general. In practice, it's easier. It can be easier to check only 1 and 2. So for the near future, we will only need 1. That's why we proved here. We proved 1 here. But yeah, you can have 2 like that. And this is the same thing to be an equivalence of category. Okay. Okay. I want to say also here, but it's all, this is straightforward, but so f, yeah, sorry. F is remark also f of f is an isomorphism if and if f is so. So it's easy to check here. We will use that without mentioning that later. You just apply this formula, and you can get this equivalence. So one is an isomorphism if and only if the other one is an isomorphism. Okay. Okay. So now we can start with the notion of monoidal category. It remains combien de temps?
25 minutes.
25 minutes?
Non, il reste 25 minutes.
25 minutes. Okay. So it remains 25 minutes. Okay. So we will see why we took time to redefine all this notion of category, functor, natural transformation, isomorphism, equivalence of category, etc. Because this notion will be used in the definition of a monoidal category. Okay. So what is a monoidal category? Monoidal category. So a monoidal category four components A1 iota. Where? So C is a category assumed here, as I said, locally small, which means the collection of morphism. So Hom set, you have set, in fact, yeah. The collection of morphism between two objects is a set called a Hom set. The tensor product. So this is this you have a functor, in fact a bifunctor, C cross C to C. So here we do not define what is the product of two categories. But we assume that to be known. So it's a bifunctor called the tensor product. So you have that. So I will list all the name of all these components, and then of course you will have some action that satisfy it. For now, I first list. So you have this bifunctor, and then A. So A. So you have A like that. The natural isomorphism where so you have this and this are three functors, are functors. And A is a natural isomorphism between these two functors. So where so like that. Or this one. So from C cross C cross C to C. Three functors made from the tensor product. So you fill the blank space. So you have X. So X, Y, Z. maps to X tensor, Y tensors. And idem for like that. Okay, so you have A, this is a natural isomorphism between these two functors. Okay, and then you have a specific element 1. So you have an element, a specific object denoted 1, which will satisfy some axiom, some unit axiom we will write after that. And finally, you have iota from 1 tensor 1 to 1, which is an isomorphism. So these are all the ingredients, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5 ingredients to define a monoidal category. So this ingredient satisfy 2 axioms. In fact, in the book, choose to define, to take the axiom, pentagon axiom and the unit axiom. And we don't need to take what is called the triangular axiom, triangle axiom. Because in fact, we will prove the triangle axiom from the pentagon axiom and the unit axiom. So it's not a usual presentation, but it's a simpler presentation of what is a monoidal category. So what is a pentagon axiom? C'est à quelle heure ça? So, okay. So the axiom. So 2 axioms. One, the pentagon axiom. So the pentagon axiom is an axiom on the. Oh, sorry, I forgot to put the name of that. This is called the associativity constraint. This A. Associativity constraint. So this natural isomorphism is for associativity. Okay. So the pentagon axiom is about this natural isomorphism A. So, okay. So you start from, so for all W, X, Y, Z in the category C, you start from this object, W tensor X, tensor Y, tensor Z. And if, so you can first apply, so you can sure.
C'est bon.
Okay. So if you apply, so A, Y, W, X, Y, tensor identity of Z. So you can ignore Z here, you put identity, but you play with the parenthesis here. So you apply the associativity, so you move the parenthesis here. So you get W tensor X tensor Y, and this is unchanged. So you can do that. And you can continue. Here, what you can say, you can apply this one now, W X tensor Y. You see. So here you move everything. Nothing is ignored. And so what you get W tensor. You move the parentheses, so tensor U, Y, tensor C. And again, so pentagon means 5. So we will do that 5 times. Now you ignore W. So you ignore W, you put the identity, and you move the parenthesis on the right part here. So you just apply this isomorphism X, Y, Z. And what you get is like that. X, Y, Z. Okay. So we went from there to there. And now we will see that there is another way to go from there to there. If you start here, and now you apply this W, X, Y, Z. So what you get? That here nothing is ignored. You put everything just like that. And you can go there by applying this one. Y tensor Z. And the pentagon axiom says that this big diagram commute. It commute, which is not true in general. As I said in the introduction, you can have I said in introduction, the fusion ring with two elements in the basis. It can be categorized if and only if, as I said, n equals 0 or 1. For example, when n equals 2, then you cannot make the pentagon axiom, this pentagon to commute. As I said, so I will not explain here, but this pentagon axiom can be reformulated. If you are in a fusion category, it can be reformulated as a system of polynomial equation. And so to satisfy for the pentagon axiom for this diagram to commute, this is the same thing that to have a solution of a system of polynomial equation. Okay. And this is the first axiom, and we will finish the course with the second axiom. Here. The second axiom called the unit axiom. Which is the following. The functors of left and right multiplication by 1. So L1 maps to 1. R1 maps X tensor 1. So one on the left, the other on the right. So these two functors are equivalents of C C. You can say auto-equivalence. Yeah. So this is the second axiom and the last axiom. So the property, what the unit object one should satisfy. So let's come back to here. So we provided an axiom for that, an axiom for that. So this is a monoidal category. And not here. So the couple one iota. So we call iota is one tensor 1 to 1. One iota is called one iota is called the unit object. The unit object of C. So quickly, this is one is the unit object, but in the book they call that this couple to be the unit object. Anyway, so next time, so it's almost finished. It remains 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Stop. So next time, so I will stop here. Next time, we will prove that the existence of natural isomorphism L from L1 to the identity of C and R from R1 to the identity of C. Yeah. So just to I wrote that to point out that this is not the identity in general. Of course, you want to think that as an identity, but we can only under this axiom we can only prove that the existence of a natural isomorphism between that and the identity, and between that and the identity. And we will start tomorrow by proving that. Okay, thank you. See you tomorrow.